Hey Sugarbee family. Yellow heart. Get ready to feel all the emotions, because what if I told you that Jamie Fraser's final chapter isn't written in blood or battle, but in something far more powerful, fatherhood? That's right. Outlander Season 8 isn't just the end of a saga. It's the moment Jamie finally stops running from his past and steps into something he's been denied his whole life, the chance to be dad. What if the fiercest warrior we've ever known puts down the sword, just to hold his grandchildren? What if William finally learns the truth about his father? And what if Brianna sees Jamie not as a ghost from another century, but as the heart of her family's future? This is the Outlander moment we've waited years for. Not a war, but a reunion. Not history, but healing. Fire, so grab your tissues, Sugarbee crew, because this one's going straight to the soul. Let's dive into the story that could change everything. Stay tuned. Outlander has pulled us through time, across oceans, and into the lives of people caught between fate and free will. At the center of it all stands Jamie Fraser. We met him as a Highlander, wounded in body but not in spirit, hiding from redcoats in the shadow of the Scottish Rebellion. We watched him fall in love, suffer loss, survive battles, and build a life. Again and again, he's fought beside kings, fled from empires, and crossed centuries, without ever stepping through the stones himself. But now, with Season 8 on the horizon, something feels different. The final season isn't just an ending, it's a reckoning. Jamie has always been a man pulled in two directions, the fighter and the lover, the protector and the hunted. But beneath the surface, there's a quieter war that's been waging inside him for years, the war of being a father in the shadows. When Claire returned through the stones carrying his child, Jamie stayed behind to face Culloden. He gave up everything so Brianna could live. And then, when he discovered he had a son, William, the pain of being unknown to his own blood nearly broke him. Time has taken more from Jamie than any sword ever could. And yet, he carries on. As Season 8 approaches, we all expect one last war, one more clash of armies and loyalty and blood. But what if that's not where the real story is? What if the true climax of Jamie Fraser's journey isn't found in another gunfight or battle cry? What if the final story is about healing instead of hurting? About rebuilding instead of running? Because now, after everything, Jamie has what he never thought possible, he has time. And with that time comes a chance to be more than a legend, a chance to be a father. We're standing at the edge of Jamie's last season. The question isn't how many more enemies he'll defeat, it's whether he can mend the wounds that war never touched. Whether he can find peace in the eyes of his children. Whether his story ends not in fire and fury, but in forgiveness. Maybe, just maybe, the biggest victory isn't survival, it's love that stays. Jamie Fraser has walked through fire, but he's never truly walked his daughter down a path of peace. He's raised armies, but he hasn't raised his son. That's the twist no one talks about. We know him as a hero, a laird, a soldier who defied kings and outlived wars. But what if we've missed the quietest, most human part of him? What if the real story was never about revolution, it was about redemption through fatherhood? Think about it. Jamie is a man who's fought for land, for freedom, for love. But when it comes to his children, the fight has always been silent. With Brianna, they were missing years, decades lost in different centuries. He never saw her take her first steps. Never heard her call him dad as a little girl. Their bond came later, awkward and fragile, but real. He's tried to make up for the past. But can time travel ever repay a childhood missed? And then there's William, his secret son, raised by another man, with Jamie watching from a painful distance. That wound has never healed. William doesn't know the full truth. He doesn't know the depth of love that Jamie has held back for years, out of duty, out of honor. Imagine loving your own child and pretending you're just a family friend. Imagine watching him grow from a distance, unable to call him son. Season 8 has a chance to bring something that's never fully happened on screen, the emotional confrontation. Not with muskets, but with memory. Not with strategy, but with soul. Jamie doesn't need another battlefield. He needs a table, a fire, a moment with Brianna. A walk with William. A conversation where he doesn't have to lie, doesn't have to hold back, doesn't have to be anything but a father. There's something powerful in that. The idea that Jamie Fraser's final battle isn't against an army, but against silence, against guilt, against the years that slipped away when war called him and time separated him. And this time, he might not need a sword. He might only need to say the words he's held in his chest for too long. I'm your father. I never stopped loving you. Season 8 could be the first time we see Jamie Fraser unarmed, not because he's weak, but because he's finally strong enough to be vulnerable. This isn't a fall from glory. It's the rise of something better. The man we've followed through every storm may finally be stepping into the calm. Maybe that's the story we've been waiting for all along. Before there was war, there was love. And before there was legacy, there was loss. That's the story Jamie Fraser has been carrying like a weight on his back, heavier than any sword he's ever lifted. You see, for all the battles he's fought, Jamie has never truly known what it feels like to simply be a father. Not in the quiet, everyday kind of way. Not in the way where you get to watch your child sleep under your roof, call your name when they're afraid, or sit beside you without needing to explain how time pulled you apart. That part of his life has always stayed just out of reach. And yet, he has 2 children. 2 very different children. One raised in the future. One raised in silence. Brianna, his daughter, born of love, raised by another man across 2 centuries. William, his son, born of war, raised in privilege, with no idea that the man who saved him from danger is the same man who gave him life. These 2 represent everything Jamie has gained and everything he's lost. With Brianna, the relationship came later in life. She was grown when they met. Their connection was built on letters and longing. Every moment together was stolen, borrowed against time. But when Jamie looked into her eyes, he saw Claire. And more than that, he saw himself. That kind of recognition is its own kind of healing. Still, there's always that aching question between them. What if we had more time? There's no father's hand on his shoulder, no shared name, just secrets and sacrifice. And maybe, in the quiet moments, regret. Imagine the courage it takes to stay in the shadows of your own child's life. To give up your right to be called so he can have a name, a future, and a family that you couldn't offer him. Jamie did that, not for himself, but for William. And now, as the story nears its end, the weight of that choice presses harder than ever. But maybe, just maybe, the final season offers something different. A chance. A letter. A meeting. A moment of truth. What if the walls come down? What if Jamie stops running from time and finally stands still with his children, one on each side, both knowing exactly who he is? That's the kind of moment that could rewrite everything. Not the history books. A hard asterisk. Every man has a moment where he stops running, from his past, from his guilt, from the things he couldn't control. For Jamie Fraser, that moment has always been waiting just over the next ridge, just beyond the next war. He's crossed countries, fought empires, lost everything, and built it all again. But he's never truly stopped, not for long. Because stopping means facing what's been left behind. And for Jamie, that means facing the silence where a father's voice should have been. But what if season 8 is finally where he stands still? No battlefield. No enemy at the gate. Just time. It's finally catching up to him. What does that look like for a man like Jamie Fraser? Not dramatic. Not explosive. It looks like a quiet morning with Brianna and her children. It looks like seeing William not through the eyes of a stranger, but through the eyes of a father. It looks like putting down the weapons, literal and emotional, and saying what's never been said. Because here's the truth. War gave Jamie a purpose, but fatherhood could give him peace. And not the kind you win by surviving, but the kind you earn by forgiving yourself, most of all. Jamie never got to hold his daughter when she was born. He never taught her to ride, never kissed her skinned knees, never told her bedtime stories. But he could be there now, for her children, for the moments that are still ahead, not just the ones already lost. And William. William is the hardest part of all. Because how do you begin a conversation like that? How do you tell a grown man that the life he's always known was built on a truth hidden in love and pain? That the man he thought was just a shadow in the corner of his life is, in fact, the very reason he exists? That takes more bravery than any war Jamie's ever faced. But here's the beauty of it, Jamie is still alive. His children are still alive. There's still time, not to erase the past, but to rewrite the ending. Not to undo the pain, but to grow something new from it. What if we get to see that? What if Jamie finally sits across from William and says the words he's waited years to speak, not for recognition, not for thanks, just for truth? The war is almost over. But the real story, the one we haven't seen, the one we've barely dared to hope for, that one might just be beginning. And it's not written in smoke or steel. It's written in eyes, in silence, in the weight of a hand placed gently on a son's shoulder for the very first time. They say a man's legacy is carved in stone, in land owned, in battles won. But Jamie Fraser was never that kind of man. His legacy isn't the land he fought for or the blood he spilled. It's in the people who carry his memory, not just his name, but his heart. And when the dust of war settles, when the noise of revolution fades, what's left isn't the story of a warrior. It's the question every father faces before the end. Did I give enough of myself to the people who mattered most? Jamie has led men into battle. He's held the weight of nations on his shoulders. But the most meaningful thing he'll ever leave behind is not a battlefield. It's a family. Not just Claire, who has stood beside him through every twist in time, but the children who carry his spirit forward, Brianna, William, Jamie, Mandy. His legacy isn't written in history books. It's written in lullabies passed down, in fireside stories, in the way a son walks or a daughter stares stubbornly into the eyes of the world. This is what makes Jamie Fraser different. He's not chasing glory anymore. He's chasing connection. Real human connection. The kind that doesn't care about bloodlines, honor, or the Highland Code. The kind that whispers, "You matter to me," even when the years have been cruel. And that legacy, it can't be fought for. It can only be earned, day by day, moment by moment. Imagine Jamie sitting with Jamie in the field, showing him how to tie a knot the old Highland way. Imagine him reading one of Claire's books to Mandy, even if the words are strange on his tongue. Imagine Brianna watching her father not as a ghost of what might have been, but as a living part of her children's lives. And then imagine William, not just seeing Jamie as a relic of war or a mysterious protector, but as something far more frightening and beautiful, the man who gave him life. This is the legacy Jamie Fraser could leave behind. Not a name in stone. Not a monument. But a story told at the dinner table. A quiet strength passed through generations. A kind of love that survives even time itself. Because in the end, legacy isn't about what you build. It's about who remembers, and how deeply. Season 8 might give us battles. Or it might give us loss. But if it gives us this, if it gives us the version of Jamie who doesn't just survive, but connects, then it might be the most powerful ending of all. Every great story saves its most honest moment for the end. Not the loudest. Not the most heroic. But the one that finally tells the truth. Outlander has always been about love, sacrifice, time, and war. But beneath the kilts and gunfire, under the stones and the stars, there's always been something more quietly waiting. A warrior's legacy meets a father's silence. Jamie Fraser has long been known as a soldier, a leader, a protector, but in the shadows of his glory lies the deepest wound of all, the years he lost as a father. Season 8 opens with Jamie feeling the weight of time, not in battles fought, but in the quiet absence of moments missed. He remembers the daughter he never got to raise and the son he never got to claim. This chapter sets the emotional tone, showing Jamie as a man caught between the heroic past and a future that demands emotional truth over bloodshed. Brianna's world, and the father who wasn't there. As Brianna raises her children in a world far removed from 18th century Scotland, her relationship with Jamie is still healing. Season 8 dives into their bond, complicated, beautiful, and scarred. Brianna confronts the pain of growing up without a father, while Jamie struggles with guilt and the hope of becoming a grandfather who is present. Through quiet scenes, shared meals, walks with Jamie, bedtime stories with Mandy, we see Jamie trying to earn the moments he never had with Brianna, by being there for her now. William, the son who doesn't know the truth. William Ransom remains Jamie's deepest heartbreak. Raised by Lord John Grey, William still doesn't know that the man he occasionally crossed paths with is, in fact, his biological father. This chapter explores the tension in their relationship, respect, curiosity, and a strange familiarity. Season 8 teases the moment of reckoning. Will Jamie finally tell William the truth? And if he does, will William accept it, or reject the man who gave him life but not a name? Claire, between past, present, and the family they could still be. Claire remains Jamie's anchor, the only one who truly understands the sacrifices he's made. Together, they reflect on the family they could have had and the one they can still build in these final days. Claire urges Jamie not to let pride or fear rob him of peace. Their bond deepens as Claire supports Jamie's decision to finally confront the silence between him and his children. Through her encouragement, Jamie begins to believe he deserves not just redemption, but reconnection. A father's journey, not to the battlefield, but home. For perhaps the first time, Jamie's journey isn't to a war front, but to a dinner table, a child's smile, a difficult conversation. This chapter shows Jamie's transition from protector of Scotland to protector of his family's emotional future. His courage isn't in drawing a sword, but in finally being vulnerable. He teaches Jamie about Highland ways, reads to Mandy despite struggling with the words, and prepares to meet William, not as a warrior, but as a father. The truth between father and son. In the most emotional chapter of the season, Jamie finally tells William the truth. There is no dramatic outburst, just a quiet conversation, full of pain, love, and unanswered questions. William's reaction is complex. Shock, anger, disbelief, but underneath it all, a part of him had always known. The moment doesn't end in resolution, but in possibility. Jamie doesn't ask for forgiveness, he simply gives his son the truth, and with it, the choice to connect. Rewriting legacy, from war hero to family man. Legacy is a theme throughout Outlander, but in Season 8, Jamie begins to understand it differently. His legacy isn't in the battles won or land protected, it's in Brianna's strength, in Jamie's curiosity, in Mandy's laughter, and in William's resilience. This chapter brings heartfelt scenes of Jamie passing down Highland traditions, family values, and quiet wisdom, not in a castle, but in the fields and homes that echo with love. A future forged by love, not bloodshed. As Season 8 draws to a close, we don't see Jamie riding into war, but sitting in peace. Maybe by a hearth with Claire. Maybe surrounded by children and grandchildren. Maybe just standing beside William in silence. Whatever form it takes, Jamie's final chapter is one of emotional triumph, not because he fought, but because he stopped running. He faced time, truth, and his own heart, and chose to stay. As Outlander Season 8 comes to its emotional close, it's not war or politics that define Jamie Fraser's legacy, it's love, family, and truth. After decades of sacrifice, silence, and separation, Jamie finally finds the courage to face the most personal battle of his life, not against an army, but against the fear of not being enough for the children he loves. He sits with Brianna and her children, no longer a ghost of the past but a present, living part of their lives. He teaches Jamie how to tie a Highland knot, reads to Mandy with a smile in his eyes, and shares quiet moments of healing with Claire, his constant. But the most unforgettable moment comes when Jamie finally tells William the truth. Not for thanks, not for recognition, but because it's time. The two men stand in silence, heavy with emotion. And then, slowly, William nods. No grand speech, no dramatic ending, just understanding. Just a son finally seeing the man behind the mystery. And with that, Jamie Fraser is no longer just a warrior or a legend. He is a father. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest legacy of all. Red Heart Fire. So, Sugarbee family, what if the greatest battles aren't fought with swords, but with the heart? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Outlander deep dives.